Welcome to Money, Manifestation, and Business, the podcast that shows you how to use your energy, intention, and consciousness to reprogram your money mindset, unleash a new level of possibility, and create a life and business that lights you up. I'm your host, Jamie Berman, and I invite you to join me each week for a dose of inspiration, coaching, and teachings to help you rewrite your money story, create abundance on your terms, and grow your business in a way that's fully aligned for you. This is going to be so much fun. Let's dive in. Welcome back. Excited for this episode because someone asked me a really powerful question that got me thinking. And in fact, it got me thinking this would be a great podcast episode. I want to record this. So someone recently asked me, Jamie, if you had to start your business all over today from scratch, no audience, no clients, no momentum, what would you actually do to create your first 100K? And why I love that question is it made me really think about it because I started my business 10 years ago. Now, things were different 10 years ago. Of course, there are a lot of foundational pieces of business that were, needed to be implemented and are going to be the same. But the world has changed a lot in 10 years. Technology has changed a lot in 10 years. We have AI now. We have, just feels like the market's different than it was 10 years ago. Naturally, of course, it's evolved. And so what worked 10 years ago is different than what would work today. So it was kind of fun to think about, how would I start it today? What would I do that's the same that I did when I started back when? And what would I change? What would I do differently now? So I'm excited to unpack this with you. And I really wanted to go through both the strategic side and actual tangible things that I would do from a business perspective, but also talk about a little bit more of the mindset that I would take on, the energetics, how I would use manifestation, how I would use the power of my mind to help accelerate the process and create 100K in my very first year if I was doing it all over. So we're going to dive into it. Some of the strategy will probably be aligned with my business, a coaching business. So just know that if you have a different kind of business, you can think about what would that be for you if you were starting over, or what do you want to focus on? Or maybe some of the things that I share are going to be helpful if you are starting out your first 100K journey. So without further ado, let's dive into the strategy first, and then we will dive into the mindset and manifestation that will help accelerate it. Okay, first, strategy-wise, what would I do if I was starting over? No list, no momentum, no clients at all. I would honestly pick an expensive problem to solve. So I would actually hyper niche down if I was starting from scratch. Now, if that scares you, just listen, hear me out. I know a lot of people freak out about niching down. And for me, I would hyper niche down. And I want to tell you why. This is actually something that I did 2 years into my business. So the first 2 years of my business, I was a little more general life coach. I did some health coaching. I did some money coaching. But then I decided to hyper niche down and solve a problem that I knew a lot of women were struggling with, because it was a problem that I had previously really struggled with, and I couldn't find answers. I couldn't find a solution. So after years and years and years of struggling with it and finally finding a solution, I thought, this is what I want to niche down, and this is what I want to help people with. So my very first, not first, but I would say the second evolution of my coaching business, after at first being general, but then moving into whenever I decided to hyper niche, that was actually when I made my first 100K year and things started really gaining momentum. So I became a coach for women with PCOS who want to lose weight. So I wasn't just a weight loss coach. I was a coach for women with PCOS who wanted to lose weight. And so I would call that a hyper niche, meaning it was a very specific group of people. Someone knew if that was them. Also, someone else, like if they heard a family member talking about that they were struggling with PCOS and couldn't lose weight due to it, they would probably immediately think, you got to go to Jamie Berman, right? And that's exactly what happened. And this is why I was a big fan of hyper niching down my first 100K, because what happened when I did that, when I moved from being more of a general health, money, life coach into just this weight loss coach for women with PCOS, is when I created my website, the SEO was off the charts. I didn't know a darn thing about SEO either, right? Like I didn't have an SEO expert come in and tweak my messaging, tweak my content. I was literally living from lived experience and speaking to a super specific person with a super specific problem. And it naturally made the SEO just rise to the top. So I was like the very first person that came up when you looked at weight loss for PCOS. And I remember my web designer saying, Jamie, I cannot believe how well your SEO does, how searchable you are. Like, that's amazing. She's like, I think it's just the value of having this super specific niche. So people would literally find me from Google. So that really helped. It also helped me grow my social at that time because I wasn't running ads or anything like that when I first started, but my content was so hyper specific that the algorithm helped me find other people who were searching for that. So I just think it really supported my growth and helped me skyrocket my business by getting even more specific. So again, solve an expensive problem. When I say that, what I mean by that is solve a problem that people are struggling with, that people will pay for. And this was a problem people would pay for because they were in a lot of pain around it. They were in a lot of struggle. There wasn't a lot of solutions out there. And so I would say it was a fantastic niche. Now, as you know, that is not my niche anymore. I just didn't have a passion for it after a while. I absolutely loved it my first couple years coaching. I built a very successful business doing it. I helped a lot of women. It helped me heal by doing that work. But there came a point where I was like, I'm complete with this internally, and I don't think it's my soul calling to do for life. So I let myself shift and evolve, but it's how I made my first 100K. So if I were to do it again, I would do the same thing and I would hyper niche down and I would figure out like, what is a problem that people are really having? What are people really struggling with? And how do I have the solution to that? The next one that I would do is I would just build one offer that works. Like I wouldn't have a million different offers, a million different freebies. I would really think about one thing that I want to sell and just get good at selling that. One person, one problem, one transformation. And that way I could just master the skill of that. And then, once I created 100K, you can build on from that. But that's how I would do it. I think for me, I'm someone who just really appreciates simplicity, really appreciates a single focus, or like not only one single focus, but less focus, right? Not thinking about a million different things. So I think that approach just really works for me. And so that's what I would for sure do my first 100K. I'd also become an energetic match to selling consistently, meaning I would become someone who gets comfortable selling consistently, not just when I feel inspired, not just when I want to. I would normalize in my entire system selling on a daily basis. Right? And just get used to that. Get used to talking about the problem that I solve, invite people in regularly, share client wins, make offers. Because if I wanted to make 100K, that's necessary. You can't just dip in and out and overthink and all of those things. So I am a big fan. What I learned from Brooke Castillo was do B- work, right? Just do it. Put more out there imperfectly. And so that's what I would do when it comes to selling. And I just become someone who sells consistently. If you've ever hit a good income month in your business and then wondered, why can't I seem to do this consistently? Well, I want to invite you to a free live training I'm hosting called Consistent 10K Months Without Complicated Funnels. Because the truth is, your income isn't random. There are specific patterns keeping you stuck in that cycle, and I'm going to show you exactly how to shift them. This isn't just a webinar. This is where you're going to start becoming the kind of entrepreneur who creates consistent income. And when you show up live, you'll get my big money hypnosis audio plus access to live coaching with me. So if you're ready for your income to feel more stable, more predictable, and actually repeatable, go grab your spot for free right now at jamieberman.com/10K. I'll see you there. The fourth strategic move that I would make is I would pick one platform and go all in. Especially now, there's so many different platforms out there. And especially in the beginning, when I haven't mastered one and I'm trying to master them all, that would get so confusing and overwhelming. So kind of like the constraining to one offer and getting good at that, I would also constrain to one primary platform that I use to market and sell. And I would go all in on that. And what's fun about that is you can repurpose content on other platforms, but it's just repurposing. So the way that I would think about it is, what do I actually enjoy? Right? I'd ask myself these questions that I'm going to post to you. Do I enjoy being on video? Do I like doing short form content, kind of like Instagram or TikTok? Or do I like more long form where I can be more descriptive and kind of talk things through, like a podcast, for example, or a YouTube channel? Do I like audio? Do I like speaking? Or again, do I like video? Do I like to, have a visual included with it and, learn to edit that and get really good at that? You could also ask, do I like writing? Because there's things like Substack, what do I actually enjoy? That's what I would ask myself. Or probably when it was my first 100K, I might ask myself, what's the path of least resistance? Meaning, what is going to be the easiest for me to get out in this first phase in the beginning, right? Like, will it be easiest for me to get out a Substack every week? Or will it be easiest for me to get out a podcast episode? Or will it be easiest for me to get out, 5 social posts, right? What's going to be the easiest? What's going to be the path of least resistance? And that's probably actually where I would start. And then I would just get good at that and master that and go all in on that platform, learning what works, how to grow it. And I would, again, do B- work, do it messy, and then kind of evaluate, of the messy stuff that I put out there, what seems to be landing, what seems to be working, and just evaluate from there and then double down on what's working. Now, the fifth thing that I would do strategically, now this was not something that I had the option to do 10 years ago, but if I was starting in 2026, I would learn AI. And I would use that as my team member, as my support system, like an assistant, right? I would treat AI like a team member. And that's why I think in so many ways, it's so much easier to start a business in 2026 than it was in 2016, because we do have AI and it's such an amazing support. So it can really help you save time, right? So it can help you refine content ideas or refine your messaging or, things with offer creation, or just in terms of learning faster, learning how to use a program faster. You can literally type into AI, what are the steps of this? Whereas we used to have to I would sometimes try to search it on YouTube and get in there and fail at it or have to take an entire course on something. So I was telling my husband, I'm like, what used to take me 2 weeks to do can literally take me 2 hours to do these days. So use AI as your support system. And again, we're not trying to have it take over our brain and do everything, but use it as a super helpful support and it will save you so much time. Now, the sixth thing I would do strategically is I would really try to create proof fast, meaning I wouldn't wait till I'm perfect to put myself out there. I would really just want to get out there, get a few clients, over deliver, use those wins as momentum. Probably wouldn't overthink the price, probably wouldn't try to go really high ticket in the beginning. I would just want to create some momentum and some proof and get some clients under my belt and get going. So the seventh thing I would do, this is a biggie. This one's huge. I would make sure to invest in two things. I would make sure to invest in a coach that can help me see where I'm limiting myself, help me overcome my brain, help me regulate my nervous system through the ups and downs of business and through the rejection and through failures and all of that that's going to inevitably happen. And it's going to always happen. But for sure, your first 100K, it's 100% going to happen. So I would definitely have a coach that I am seeing weekly to help support me through that growth. Because when you start a business, it is a massive growth phase. And so having someone holding your hand is going to, oh my gosh, make the process so much smoother and but allow you to just move through it faster so that you're not getting bogged down in self-doubt and stopping and starting and all of that. So for sure, I would invest in a coach, and I would also make sure to build relationships. So I'd invest in high-level relationships, meaning, getting into rooms, maybe it's a mastermind or a community or some kind of support where, it's a community of people who are on the same track as me or maybe a little bit ahead, right? And I would regulate to normalizing 100K, success being normal and being around other successful women. Huge, huge, huge. They do say you are like the 7 people that you are around the most. And so I would want to surround myself with people who are going after it, who are successful, who are on the path, who are, normalizing 100K. Like that's just the beginning, because that will infuse into your system and your brain. And so I would absolutely have those two things, probably like a mastermind or some kind of community and a coach. Now, the last thing that I would do strategically, this is actually what I wouldn't do. I would limit my scrolling. I would limit consumption, which oftentimes goes against what our brain thinks we need to do when we're growing or when we're learning something or when we're evolving into the next phase. But what I find is that whenever I scroll, I get overwhelmed because everyone's telling you something different to do. It can get confusing. For me, even now, feel like if I'm over scrolling, I'm doing everything wrong. There's so much I need to do because it's just so much content, so much info. Not that it's not great to lean in and listen and soak up the teachings and the lessons and the learnings, but I would be really intentional with it, right? And notice how you feel when you're listening to content. Am I learning? Am I actually growing? Or am I feeling overwhelmed, right? So for me, it's about strategically consuming the right content. For me, I love consuming podcasts because it's a slower pace. It's a deeper dive. I can really pick and choose what I want to listen to, when I want to listen to it, versus scrolling on something like Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. I don't get to choose. It's coming at me, right? So those are the places I would really, really limit scrolling. And in fact, that's something that I'm personally practicing myself, is just limiting that stuff, because I find that I'm more creative. I'm a better problem solver. I take more action when I'm not hearing everyone else's voices all the time. And also this can help if you're someone who tends to compare yourself or feel like you're behind. It's just going to help solve for that if you're not scrolling as much. So I would 100% do that as a strategy. I would limit it big time. I would limit my screen time and be really intentional with where I'm getting information and where I'm listening to content. Okay, let's move into my favorite part, which is the identity piece, the who I would be if I were just starting out. This was me stepping into my first 100K in business, starting from zero, starting from nothing. How would I use my mind to help accelerate this process? My mind, my intention, my consciousness, all the things we talk about on this podcast. What I would do is I would decide I'm a 100K coach now, regardless of my results, regardless of what the bank account looked like, regardless of the number of clients that I have, regardless of the number of consults. I would just decide it's who I am. And I would step into that energy of 100K CEO energy. In fact, this is something that I did my first year that made me my first 100K year, not my first year as a coach, but my first 100K year. I really stepped into how does my 100K self show up? How does she show up today? How does she handle this, right? How does she look at her calendar? What does she do? What does she not do for the day? And I just matched her. I matched her energy. And I remember like trying to create a funnel. And at first I was like, oh, I don't even want to record a video. But I was like, wait, my 100K self just does it. My 100K self just does it. So I got up in the office. I just did it. So that is 100% something that I would do again. The second thing that I would do kind of more identity-wise, mindset, manifestation-wise, is I would also show up in 100K energy. So I would show up confidently. I would lean into that, tap into that energy before I go on my podcast or whatever I'm creating, right? Before I go live or before I hop on a call or before I create content, I would think, okay, let's take a deep breath. What's the CEO energy like? What's my 100K CEO energy like? And I would just tap into that and create from that space, because this is what people feel before they buy. People can smell the energy that's behind you, I swear, right? So you don't have to be perfect, but if you're in like confident, loving leadership energy, people feel held. They feel like, oh, yes, like you got me, right? So I would definitely practice stepping into that energy. The third thing is I would regularly regulate my nervous system around money, sales, business. I would really practice feeling safe receiving more, receiving bigger payments, feeling safe with greater visibility, with greater responsibility. So I would regulate my nervous system to feel safer in that, whether that's through kind of visualizing it ahead of time, seeing myself doing it, telling myself I'm safe. But also on the other side, I would notice when I get triggered, when I get stuck, when I feel doubt creep in, when I feel rejected. And I would pause in those moments and I would do some body regulation. So I would try not to act from the place of self-doubt or panic or worry or rejection, and instead learn to go into the body and regulate my nervous system and come back to a place of safety, right? So I would use it in two ways. One is to regulate and to like feel safe having a bigger business, and then also use it when I'm triggered, which I have a podcast episode on that of 7 different ways to regulate your nervous system, just a couple of episodes back from this one that you can absolutely dive into and save it and use it anytime you need to regulate. Okay, the fourth thing I would do kind of identity-wise is I would detach from immediate results. This is huge because when we're too attached and we think I need to make this happen, I need to get this sale, I need to get this consult, and when we're really needy, people smell that. I swear, it's serious because that's how I used to be. And I remember my first many consults of trying to sell my coaching. I was very attached. I was like, I need this in order to hit my results, right? And it wasn't coming from true service. It wasn't coming from a neutral place, and people wouldn't sign up. And it wasn't until I shifted into non-attachment, into safe no matter what, into I just want to manifest the clients who are meant to be. I know who's meant to be for me is going to end up happening. Like I don't have to manipulate this. I don't have to make it happen. And when I came to that place of detachment, that's when things went way smoother. So I would absolutely practice detaching from results, especially immediate results. And I would just decide I'm worthy, I'm good, I'm doing this, right? And I don't know the how, but I'm committed to showing up. I'm committed to creating value. I'm committed to helping people. And it doesn't have to be this person or that person or this day, but for sure it's all happening, right? And just trust the journey. So for me, that's a much smoother way of doing business. And I would 100% practice that. I would also move like it's inevitable, like 100K is inevitable, right? I would just decide this is happening. No backing out, no constant pivoting, no maybe this won't work energy. No, this is happening. That would be my mantra. It is happening. I've decided it's happening. So even when it doesn't look like it's happening, right? And you have to really trust in that. You have to move into certainty, but I'll tell you what, that is going to accelerate the process of it happening. So I would absolutely use that energy of inevitability. I would also use my mind to accelerate everything. So I would actively practice manifestation, meaning I would do my belief work. I would do the visualizations, seeing it done, seeing myself in front of a group of people, seeing myself getting my bookkeeping report and seeing how much income came in, seeing those Stripe payments coming through, right? Use the mind first and then results will follow. I would also do work around identity expansion and seeing myself as a 100K earner, not just thinking it, but really like seeing myself doing it. So I would visualize, because the brain doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. And so you can literally program yourself through visualization and kind of carve out the path ahead of you. And once you start doing this, you'll witness it works. So I would use my mind to accelerate everything. Anyways, it's really fun to think about and honestly very helpful because a lot of this I do, but I'm like, oh, these are things that I could still double down on because the way that you create your first 100K creates the foundation for so much more. It literally is the foundation. So these are what I would lean into. So if you're wanting to make your first 100K or accelerate your next 100K, evaluate, see if you can take any of these ideas with you. See if there's anything that you can use to amplify your business and accelerate the results. All right, my friends, happy manifesting. I'll see you next week. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope this episode is something that you'll be able to add to your manifestation toolbox to come back to when you need a little extra motivation. If you like what you've heard today and want to take it deeper, you've got to come check out my signature coaching program, the Money Manifestation Movement. It's the place where you'll not only learn manifestation, but you'll begin to live it alongside me and an amazing community of like-minded entrepreneurs doing this work together. Head on over to jamieberman.com to learn more.